southern border centers on the flood of thousands of immigrants crossing daily wherever they can find entry and refuge in the U.S. And this battle over buoys. The Justice Department now suing Texas Governor Greg Abbott over floating barriers in the Rio Grande. Now, in a letter to the governor, the DOJ outlined their concerns for public safety and the danger to those immigrants. But let's put these buoys in perspective. You see them loaded onto a truck here. This is only a 1,000-foot stretch of these floating orange balls in the fifth longest river in North America, which is 1,900 miles. So let's say the Texas border was the size of a football field. That string of buoys would only stretch 7 inches out of 120 yards. Joining me right now, Rina Shah, former presidential campaign spokesperson and founder of Relax Strategies. Rina, thank you so much. Immigrants, they can walk around this 1,000-foot stretch. They can walk around the sections where there has been barbed wire put in place. Is the federal government overreacting with this lawsuit?
At the end of the day, what has yet to be seen is the federal government's real role in this. What they're alleging right now is that Governor Abbott has not just created inhumane conditions for these people coming to our shores, but what he's really doing essentially is violating a Waterways Act. And look, these buoys in the Rio Grande, whatever people think of them at the end of the day, they are very dangerous. And there are other technologies this administration in Texas could use. But what we see right now is, I would call, a continuation of the same. The federal government fighting the state government fighting the federal government to say, how can we tamper this crisis at our southern border?
And, well, I mean, you think about how many people are crossing illegally outside of the ports of entry, which is where you are supposed to cross when you are an immigrant seeking asylum in the United States. However, people who are desperate cross wherever, and many of them don't know exactly what the rules are, understandably so. What will the DOJ argument be? That people using other ports, or rather using other means of entry, is something that they have a right to, and that Texas doesn't have a right to block off other means of entry?
I believe the lawsuit will, of course, create the conditions for that argument, but I don't think they'll take the argument out that far. What Vinita Gupta at the Department of Justice is alleging is, again, the inhumanity of these buoys. The fact that they have spikes around them, the fact that people are coming to our shores seeking asylum and may not know, as you just said, what awaits them. This kind of fate interacting with the buoys, even though they could walk around, could prove to be fatal. And again, creating the type of crisis that we don't want. Having these people need to seek medical care on an already stressed system. But again, going back to that lawsuit, what they're really trying to do is saying that the Texas state government doesn't have the authority to stretch into the Rio Grande and sort of what I would call not negate this Waterways Act, but essentially create some degree of violation of it. So it's a really black and white argument. It's a way of just saying, look, Governor Abbott, you shouldn't have done this, and you could do this some other way. But what we really see right now from the Biden administration is no other solution. And I think that's what's most frustrating for a great many Republicans who continue to scream out about the crisis at the southern border, both to Vice President Harris and to the president, because their way of dealing so far has been to visit the countries in this Western hemisphere that are south of us. So to go to places like Honduras and say, don't come, it's dangerous, don't make the journey. That has not been enough. And that's what many Republicans take great issue with. And that's what they call out Vice President Kamala Harris for, rightfully so, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, you have to listen to what people are saying. You've got the Army Corps of Engineers in Mexico saying that the barrier violates international treaties. You have a White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, saying that his policies, Governor Abbott's policies, have made it difficult for U.S. Border Patrol agents to access the Rio Grande. But again, it's a 1,900-mile-long river with a 1,000-foot stretch of a buoy system. It's fascinating to see this back and forth. Clearly, the federal government needs to do more. Needs to do something. All right, Rina Shah, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.